Welcome back to Reimagine 2020. I'm Yonah Hochhauser, and today I'm glad to be joined by John Jefferies, Chief Financial Analyst at CipherTrace. John, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Yonah.
Now, John, you just gave me your whole life story, and I feel bad because we were recording, but I'm going to ask you to do it again. For the viewers who don't know you, give us a little bit about who you are and how you got into this blockchain space.
Sure. So I've been in cybersecurity for quite a while. My background was a couple of business degrees. I came up in the fund business in Canada growing up. Worked for a startup mutual fund, and then promptly moved out to California after I finished my MBA and started working in high tech, which rapidly led to cybersecurity. So I've been doing a variety of cybersecurity companies over the last couple of decades, and I've worked for our current CEO multiple times. Prior to CipherTrace, I ran blockchain and IoT innovation at the Samsung Innovation Center. So I did a bunch of work on enterprise blockchain, and I've joined CipherTrace about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And so you're at CipherTrace. What does CipherTrace do?
So CipherTrace is a blockchain analytics company. So we really focus on cryptocurrencies, and we have really two core components of our product, or our technology base, is the data itself, and then the analytics and the predictive algorithms on top of it. So we bring in a lot of what we call attribution data. So we interact with the blockchain businesses, and based on a lot of interactions, we collect millions of pieces of attribution data every week, and then run those through different sorts of machine learning algorithms and other sorts of clustering, predictive analytics, to help determine where those businesses are and be able to identify the flow of funds through dark markets and through exchanges and other types of crypto businesses.
Mm-hmm. And I know I saw your guys' name in the headlines over the past couple of days that you filed 2 patents for tracking Monero. Kudos to your PR company. They pumped it out everywhere. But 2 patents for tracking Monero. Monero, for those who don't know, has historically been the private coin that authorities couldn't track. So is that no longer true? I mean, are you guys able now to track Monero, all Monero transactions? I go and I send a transaction. You guys know it was me?
Not exactly. So we still have a long way to go. We originally did the work for the Department of Homeland Security. So we did it under contract for them to work on different ways and methods to trace Monero. Originally, we worked for them, originally funded through the DHS to trace Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is very deterministic. So when we know exactly where it came from, versus with Monero, it's more probabilistic. So Monero itself has, they use decoys. So they use multiple different decoys, typically 11. Some of the older implementations use less. And what we do is we're able to eliminate the decoys. So we're able to eliminate most of them to say it was definitely not these 9, but probably these 2. And that can be very useful for tracing and for anti-money laundering. So in the case of an exchange could say, we don't know exactly where this Monero came from, but we know it didn't come from someplace bad. It came from one of these 2 good places.
Okay, that's very cool. I mean, it's really interesting because this is such a new. All this is so new that the technology of the blockchain is new, and then you guys are doing new analysis and predictive models and deterministic models on top. So, I mean, is this exciting for you? Do you feel like you're like on the cutting edge? Is this like, oh baby, here we're riding that new internet wave all over again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. I think I told you I was one of the very first Fortune 500 webmasters on the planet, and I haven't seen any sort of excitement or growth since then. And so the level of enthusiasm around the market and the solutions is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. And do you kind of feel that, because there's so much technological innovation happening here, but it seems like all at least the mainstream media cares about is the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at 19.5 right now or something. And like you guys are doing like all this hard work. There's tons of development on Ethereum and the DeFi space. And of course, these analytic companies as well, where that's really where the tech is developing and growing. There's not that much going on, especially with just the regular Bitcoin blockchain layer 1 itself. There's not really that much innovation happening there. So do you kind of feel like, like the mainstream has the focus in the wrong spot?
No, not at all. I think, Bitcoin what we've seen this year is, JP Morgan and others entering this space. We've seen Fortune 500 companies, aggregating it. So what we've seen is, Bitcoin has been adopted by the mainstream. And so, that's really going to help drive the growth in the industry. It's certainly not, and it's going to drive different types of innovation, right? In terms of business models, custody, ease of use for consumers. In terms of the technical stuff, clearly you're right. All the cool stuff's happening in DeFi as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, as a company who does blockchain analysis, what unique challenges or avenues for products for you guys has DeFi opened up? Because it is kind of a different beast. It's similar in the sense that it's built upon, the Ethereum blockchain that we're all familiar with. But it's really interesting because it's decentralized. So there's a lot of different moving parts. So does it create different challenges, or is this,
Absolutely,
hey, this is just another product?
Oh no, it creates a whole new set of problems, and even DeFi in itself is a bit of a misnomer, right? Because there's degrees of decentralization. So I focus mostly on DEXs, decentralized exchanges, and within that community, there's really kind of two types. There's some that are truly decentralized, where they have no governance, and it's all basically financial services and software. It's all smart contracts with no one at the helm. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of right here in Northern California, there's some decentralized exchanges that are venture capitalist backed and have board of directors. And so in that respect, many of their, their governance is not decentralized at all.
Right.
And then,
right.
What we're seeing in Europe is they're freaking out, right? Because with the MiCA, it could be the death of DeFi in Europe. And we're seeing that they're going to require a legal entity behind it. So that'll be quite a big change. But it's pretty cool.
Right. Well, and when we're talking about regulating DeFi, I mean, how can you stop a truly decentralized one of these products that don't have a team behind it? It's literally just smart contracts. Even if you could track it, trace the money, how could governance stop it? Is it just the on ramps, off ramps? Is that really the only opportunity for governments to regulate?
That's the major opportunity for sure. I think if there's not a throat to choke, they don't know quite what to do. But at the end of the day, they're all somebody wrote that code, right? So yeah, I think governments are totally powerless with respect to decentralized exchanges either.
Mm-hmm. And especially now with DeFi and the smart contracts, it's super important to get high quality audits for these smart contracts. And for those who don't know, audits when a company comes in, goes through the smart contract, makes sure there's no bugs, backdoors, or it makes sure everything is kosher, essentially. And that's definitely a growing industry, a growing need to get a high quality audit. So has CipherTrace considered going into the smart contract auditing game, instead of just waiting for the contract to be taken advantage of and then tracking down the killers, the thieves? How do you consider actually getting ahead of the game and opening up the audits as well?
That's really kind of a different line of business. So that's really more of a professional service. It's certainly a great business to be in right now. And I know, the guys at QuantStamp are just, are saying no to a lot of people, right? So that business is overwhelmed. Our tech stack inherently supports all ERC20s. So as smart contracts are born, the CipherTrace analytics tools can analyze them and track them and trace them. So we have some inherent smart contract capabilities, which is quite helpful. But really, that's more for catching the frauds and the thefts after the fact.
Exactly. You place the trap, you let them come in, and then you bag them and tag them. But yeah, but that's
I never place I don't place the trap.
You don't place the trap. No, but see, that's the interesting thing, because companies like yours, CipherTrace that you work for, what percentage would you say is government contracts? Is hey, I'm tracking them down, to prosecute or to see who's breaking the law, and how much of it is by crypto companies and exchanges so they can be compliant?
Sure. I would say our business is really kind of almost equal in thirds. So a third of it is governments, both regulators and enforcement. And we do, a lot of business with the U.S. government as well as other governments around the world, Europe and Latin America and Asia. Traditional cryptocurrency businesses, funny thing to say, by the way, traditional crypto businesses,
Yeah.
like exchanges have been our bread and butter for the last several years. But one of the things that we're seeing is the move of banks, both into banking crypto companies, and also an increasing awareness that they're responsible and liable for crypto on their payment rails. And we saw the head of FinCEN, Kenneth Blanco, make some pretty very direct statements towards the banks that their examiners will be looking for that. So they'll want to know, if they have MSBs on their system, if they have customers sending money to crypto exchanges, and that's going to be, I think, quite a big push.
Well, yeah, I mean, because right now, because this technology is so new and constantly innovating, the government doesn't really know how to track these things. They have to come to companies like CipherTrace because you guys are the experts here. You understand the blockchain, you understand, you keep up with the innovation. But do you think we'll get to a point where the government will open up, a blockchain office? It will have the blockchain department, and therefore we'll be doing these investigations internally?
Oh yeah, for sure. We help some agencies with them, but we also provide the training and the tools for them to really do so. Most people don't realize this, but the IRS is part of the Treasury, and the IRS criminal division actually does the enforcement and the monitoring for FinCEN, for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And so FinCEN actually, or the IRS criminal investigation on behalf of FinCEN, is developing quite a pocket of excellence, and they've also selected CipherTrace as their tool of choice. So we both supply their tools, and we help educate them on how to use them and how to trace using best practices.
And I mean, it kind of is a little, you're kind of stuck in the middle there, because like you mentioned, you guys are working for the governments, but also for the crypto companies and also for the community. And this is an industry where there is this idea or places a high value on privacy. A lot of early crypto adopters are, they're very ideological when it comes to this. They want their transactions private. They want the government shouldn't have their hands on my money. And there's kind of this anti-government countercultural like undertone with the crypto sphere. So how do you guys as CipherTrace view yourselves? Do you view yourselves more as part of the crypto world that happens to be providing a service for the governments, or more as, we are a institution that is helping the governments right the wrongs of certain actors in the crypto community?
That's an interesting question. I think of us as, something different than both of those, right? I would say we're more part of the crypto community, and our heritage and our background is very privacy focused, both Dave's and myself. So on a personal level, we respect consumer privacy. Prior to this current plague, I was a guy who rarely used credit cards and constantly used cash for to defend my personal privacy. So at a personal level, I totally get it, and I think it's critically important to be able to defend privacy at a consumer level. And so especially as central bank digital currencies come online, I think it's very, very important to elevate some of those conversations around privacy. So I personally was a contributor to a paper produced by Perkins Coie on privacy coins and how to make them compliant. And so, it's our perception that, if you want to go and buy your fiance flowers or buy dirty pictures, then that's your own business as long as they're not children. But as soon as you cross that line where you're looking at child abuse or you're funding terrorism, that's where your right to privacy ends. And quite frankly, it's a lot like cash, right? If I went to the bank and got a couple grand, and no one blinked an eye because it's not out of sorts. But if I were to go out and pull out 25 grand or 50 grand, it would raise some eyebrows. And there's nothing I need to do personally with 100 grand that I need to do privately, right? Like what do I really, if I wanted to buy a yacht or buy a Porsche, I could do that in public, and those things that I just bought would also be public. right?
Well,
Versus
clearly, you've never been a night out of town with me in Vegas, because that's a cheap night for me and my friends. That's easy. 100 grand? Are you kidding me here? Now, I've seen CipherTrace. A lot of this community, the crypto community, lives on social media, and in the dialogue it happens on social media. I've seen CipherTrace referred to as a number of different words, and I'm going to read them to you, and I want you to tell me which one you think is the most accurate for CipherTrace. Okay? Do you view yourselves as police, vigilante, referee, investigator, or snitch?
I would say referee would probably be most appropriate.
Okay.
I can't believe all those other words though. Who said that?
Are you? Listen, privacy. All right, they're not. There was no children involved, so I cannot tell you who it was. Some people have referred to you guys as that. It's okay, but referee, that is nice. I think that is a fair description of you guys, because, like you said, you guys do come from the crypto world. You guys do have this idea of privacy rights, but you're there to make sure that people who are stepping over the line, who are doing this criminal activity, is stopped. And yeah, go ahead.
Just one more thing on privacy too is, it's also within our contracts as well. And so some of our customers, our commercial customers like funds, for example, their daily trading, Galaxy Digital is one of our investors, their daily activity and their daily strategies, that's their intellectual privacy, right? So also businesses themselves in this space really need to have some privacy as well. And that's one of the things that other vendors in the space haven't been as good about, is protecting the privacy of their customers as well.
Mm-hmm. And now we can't have any conversation about crypto without mentioning Bitcoin price. It's in my contract. I'm legally obligated to mention that Bitcoin is at like $19,500 or something, $19,500. So I got that done. Now that Bitcoin and the market overall is really on this nice bull run, green across the board, values going up, ETH's at all-time high, I think. As the value of crypto goes up, does the amount of crypto scams follow, the amount of phishing attacks and ransomware and all that such?
Yes and no. I think the ransomware isn't really affected by the value of crypto itself. In the last bull run, there's a bit of an irony where the ransomware purveyors would pick a value that seemed reasonable, that was $2 or $3 grand at the time. But then all of a sudden, by the time it came to pay out, it's like it's a $15,000 ransom. And, the guy who got, that thing that said he was spotted in front of his webcam, it seems a little excessive. So for ransomware, not so much. Obviously, I think quite frankly, going back to DeFi, the openness of the onboarding and off ramping of DeFi, and the level of insecurity around smart contracts, that's where all the stuff is going on right now, the bad stuff mostly.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about DeFi hacks. It's not even hacks so much. We're seeing a lot of flash loan exploits. I mean, I think there's like 5 or 6 flash loan exploits. And like, what do you do here? Because they're just following the rules of the game. The rules were broken. The rules were set to, that allowing someone to do this, manipulate these prices. But is there, did they do something wrong, or did they just did they take advantage of the rules of the game? As in, where do you fall on this? These flash loan exploits, because obviously this wasn't the intention of the contract writer to allow this to happen, but they didn't break the contract. These exploiters were actually just playing by the the rules of a smart contract.
Sure. So, I personally would never invest in something that wasn't audited, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just like the ICO days. Like I always told people, if you haven't read the white paper, and probably if you haven't met the team, you shouldn't invest, right? And I would say the same thing as with DeFi. If you want to go and play in that land, either play in audited smart contracts or audit them yourself. And if you're not capable of doing that, then you're over your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'd say a lot of people then are over their head here, because I highly doubt most people are going in reading the smart contracts themselves. Hopefully, they're investing in smart contracts that are audited. But we also mentioned the ransomware, which is interesting because I feel like in 2018, 2019, ransomware was huge. They were targeting cities, city of Baltimore, the city of Atlanta, hospitals, small municipalities. It seemed like every week there was another ransomware attack. And it seems like it's died down. No, is ransomware still a thing?
Oh
you
yeah.
don't hear about it because Corona is a bigger headline.
Exactly. Yeah. No, ransomware is still huge. One of a town in Virginia got taken out over the weekend. So
really?
we're seeing it's more organized, more orchestrated. They'll take out an entire school district, for example, as opposed to one school. And we've also seen during the Corona phase a lot of people focusing on on medical institutions as well, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. That's taking advantage of the situation. When it comes to these ransomware hacks, for those who don't know, it's when a hacker kind of locks a company or organization out of access to the files, and then they promise to unlock it if they pay a certain amount of Bitcoin. My question was, why are all these ransoms in Bitcoin when we all know there are companies like yous or people who could just trace the Bitcoin on the blockchain? I mean, yes, there are Bitcoin mixers, but why not just use Monero? Why are they asking for ransom in Bitcoin, which is notoriously easy to track?
Well, it's also easy to get, right? So I can walk down to my local supermarket, put 100 in the change machine, and get some Bitcoin out, right? So I can explain to my mother how to do it, but my mom can't get Monero. She doesn't know how to get it, right? So it's the ease of access from the users, and then from the ones that are being ransomed, and at the same time, it's the off ramps, right? When you at the end of the day, to buy the Lambo, you need to get fiat, and so at the end of the day, it's almost always got to come through Bitcoin.
Right, yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, sure, if you want to do the off ramps or USDT, hey, if I was asking for a ransom, though that's really centralized, they'll stop that real quick. I would try to cash out the USDT, and then it finds that Tether isn't backing it by anything, and there it goes. Now switching gears a little bit, this is a new industry, and there wasn't even a need for your company like yours a couple of years ago, and you guys really grown, filled that need, filled that space, and this is really cool to providing a product that no one even knew they needed, and now you're providing the best quality product for now a lot of people have need for. So would you say it's fair to say that chain analysis is your closest competitor? I mean, there aren't that many big companies like yours.
They're the ones I think about the most by far.
Yeah, they keep me up at night, those damn chain analysis.
Well, they keep me excited.
They keep excited. Well, so they actually just made headlines recently. They raised, I think they're trying to raise $100 million at $1 billion valuation, and that's making headlines. And I'm sure they're pushing that. Their PR people are pushing that hard. Is CipherTrace considering similar moves, trying to kind of going to an investment round and raising funds?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a venture-backed firm as well, and so that's part of the growth process. Is you raise your Series A, you get to a point, you get to a threshold, you raise your B, and you continue to grow. And you really, what's typically done is that Series A is doing what you're talking about, is finding, as they say, that product market fit. And then, as you head into your later rounds, that's really about growth, right? So we figured out what the market needs. We've built something that's a superior product, and we've figured out where it fits. Now, we do a lot of business within the federal governments, globally, as does Chainalysis. But for us, one of the big fits that other vendors don't have is that fit within traditional financial services, the fit within banking, and the close relationships we've developed with some of the anti-money laundering products for banks. So we plug right into some of the larger ones like NICE, Actimize, and Caseware. So a bank can consume our product without actually installing any additional software. So it allows rapid adoption in the banking community. And so it's that sort of growth where, all of a sudden, there might be only 1,000 crypto businesses versus, 10 or 20,000 banks that can consume us. So as we look to raise money, we're really looking to grab that market share and really grow into that space. And so it's really what they call growth capital.
Right. And like you mentioned, you guys are doing this analysis, tracking criminals that use transactions, as well as compliance. Do you also, I mean, because you're already doing so much analysis on the blockchain, you probably have a huge amount of data available. Are you guys also, providing market data or market intelligence for companies who are, or especially now the big institutions, institutional investors are trying to come in? Are you guys, also offering, market research as well?
Not in terms of making investment decisions per se. So as you observed, we have a ton of data, and we like to apply that, where we think it's appropriate and where it really fits with our business. In terms of, people who trade aren't necessarily our core business, but we do enable some of them to consume our data through an API. So we have some partnerships where people are bringing in our data and using that to enrich their own data to make some of these decisions. And then, when we see events happening in the world, we'll do some custom analysis. For example, the US FinCEN is trying to change some of the limits on the travel rule. So I'm not sure if you know what travel rule is, but it's basically a requirement similar to the banking world where user information has to move with the transaction. Globally, the level is 1,000. In the US, it's been 3,000, and they're now talking about bringing it down to $250. And so,
wow,
we did some analysis of what that would mean to the burden on the exchanges, right? So literally, US exchanges would have to process 2.5 times as much as they would under the current regs if they change those regs. So those sort of insights we're able to provide.
Wow. Now, already it seems like, I guess over the last month, I'd say, a lot of big names, big organizations and companies have come into the crypto sphere. The first publicly traded company to publicly invest some money into Bitcoin, a MicroStrategy, where they put 10% of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. I think they even raised that amount since then. Square, which is run by Jack Dorsey, has also put some cash reserves into Bitcoin. And now PayPal. PayPal has announced the buying, selling, and trading of crypto, even though not really crypto keys. They're allowing the exposure. But does this massive kind of incoming of the big boys? For so long it's kind of been I don't want to say hobbyist. I don't want to say hobbyist the crypto sphere, but it's been the small time players. And now the big boys are coming in. Is this just going to explode? Not just the market, not just the prices of crypto, but companies like yours, like a market of crypto services, companies that service the crypto community. Are we going to see just an explosion of these now that these big organizations are coming in and they need services like yours? They're not going to just they're not a retail trader who's just going to go to CoinMarketCap for their data. They want an industry like yours.
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing these big players come in. It's really, demonstrating that crypto is, a new and acceptable class of investment instrument. And, but by its nature, it's very technical, right? So these traditional firms really need to have expertise and the appropriate tooling. And we've seen that, in traditional finance as well with, fraud capabilities and fraud technologies, anti-fraud. There's a need for, as you observed earlier, as money comes in, that's what attracts the bad guys. And so there'll be a continual cat and dog game of trying to stop the bad things from happening, and help them understanding.
Right, and this is just a question, a curiosity question, and kind of how this industry works. When we're just talking about the Bitcoin blockchain, but most blockchains in general. We could trace the transactions from wallet to wallet, the balances from wallet to wallet, and a lot of times when there is a fraud happening, when there is a ransom or a hack or a scam, you mentioned there's an off ramp, and these off ramps to fiat are usually a lot of times centralized exchanges. So my question is this: one, how known are the exchange wallets? As in, if you see a transaction eventually hit Huobi or hit OKX or hit Binance or hit Coinbase, their wallets. What you're seeing on the blockchain is a wallet address. You're not seeing Coinbase. So one, do we know, are all these, are all the crypto incoming into these big exchanges? Or do we know all their wallet addresses? That's one. And two, when there is fraud or when you do see malicious money going into an exchange and you actually reach out to them, how good are the exchanges at actually listening and saying, okay, this is fraud money, we're going to freeze it or give it back?
So I would say that the exchanges themselves are very cooperative. So there's, private Telegram groups that, trade this information and trade addresses when, when there's fraud or when there's thefts, and they're able to freeze it on their own accounts, before it can make the final getaway. To your previous question, we know most of the wallet addresses. We don't know everything. So the general public would not necessarily know that, a wallet address belongs to Binance versus Coinbase. However, we do. And that's what the clustering technology does. And we've, opened accounts at over 1,000 exchanges, and we move money between them. So we use those movements of money and those tidbits of data to be able to associate the other wallets to those exchanges.
Well, you just let me in on the secret sauce. Now I'm going to start my own company and just open up two wallets and two exchanges, send one to the other, say, oh, see, now I know these all. That's a good solution, my man. I guess you
only have to do that like 1,000 times.
I guess you guys know what you're talking about.
Well, the other thing is the data itself is short-lived, right? So, having been in business, and that's one of the beautiful things about our business is we have, as a venture capitalist would say, a technology moat where we have, great technologists, building great algorithms and have a pipeline, but also we have this data moat, right? So the data itself changes and is gone. And so, we've been in business for 5 years now. And so we have that history of data versus, sadly, if you were to start right now, you'd never be able to get that data.
Right. And especially now that and we're talking about massive data sets at this point as it grows and it grows. That is a great solution. I didn't realize that is a way, at least temporarily. But you mentioned you guys are VC backed, and you actually came, you and CEO David Jevons, you guys worked together a lot in the past. Many successful companies, high tech, cybersecurity. Do you guys think that because you already came from a successful high tech cybersecurity background, it gives you an advantage? Now, even though this is a new space, you guys already kind of know the keys to success in a new company and raising capital, and where do you think those strengths lie?
I don't think raising capital is a core competency, although, Dave is very good at it. But, having done multiple startups over the last 20 years, we've made a lot of the mistakes that our competitors, we watch our competitors make, right? So we've learned through the process of growing companies, what needs to be done. And I think, this cybersecurity background is super valuable because it really enables us to think like the adversary, right? So it's not just Dave and I. The whole executive staff has worked together in the past, both in the payment space and in the cybersecurity space, and really being able to understand that adversary, to think how he thinks or she thinks is really critical to being able to unwind some of these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's working for you guys. I mean, you guys are one of the biggest names in the space, so kudos to you. And now let me just pick your brains just on a personal level, your thoughts on the industry. DeFi. Do you yield farm? Are you excited about DeFi in a particular way, or are you more? I stick with the tried and true Bitcoin.
So I do not yield farm.
Okay.
But as I told you, as a finance geek, from way back, it's fascinating to me, and I see myself writing smart contracts in my later years.
Really? Is that you're retiring with a cup of a cold iced tea on your rocking chair, writing smart contracts?
So cool to be able to design, and when I was a kid, I used to design different funds, different types of funds, and back then the VP of sales would say, "Oh, John, that's so complicated. No one will ever understand that." And now, people don't really care if they understand or not. They're just going to invest. So,
right.
I think DeFi is going to experience some growing pains for sure.
Right.
And then it's really going to transform finance.
Wow. I mean, that's an interesting hobby to have growing up. I mean, if I would have known you, if I would have been any of your friends and saw you spending your free time doing that, I'm like, I'm fucking being friends with this guy because he's going to be successful. All right. The little 5'3" kid who's trying to become an NBA player, probably not going to work. But you spend your free time developing fun algorithms. That's incredible. Now, it's kind of crazy because this new technology, like you mentioned, it innovates so fast. It really is incredibly quick. It seems like there's a new DeFi product or financial tool that's coming out every single week. How hard is it, as a company that prides itself on keeping its finger on the pulse? How hard is it to keep up with the constant innovation and new products coming out?
It's hard. It's a lot of work, right? There's DeFi. I've been watching it for the last year and a half and participating in some forums and things like that, but it really didn't get real until it achieves critical mass this summer. And that's sort of the same with a lot of the other innovations as we watch them and we monitor them, and as they become more acceptable to a larger number of people, then we really focus on addressing it.
Mm-hmm. And last question before I let you go, because I do know that you're a very busy man. Definitely early on in the crypto space, and for a long time, it kind of paid to be the bad guy. It paid to be the hacker because there wasn't as much education, so it was much easier to pull off phishing scams. There were a lot of loopholes and lapses of securities in exchanges, and there wasn't as much money to be made going the traditional route. So I think for a long time, it paid to be the bad guy. But now with the increase in companies like yours that could track nefarious actors, plus the increase in security and best practices by exchanges, better knowledge, people against phishing scams, and plus this massive amount of legitimate money of VCs, willing to throw in money there. Do you think I would say for sure we're at the point, but when do you think was that point where it's like, hey, I'm a really, really smart guy who understands blockchain. I could either hack this exchange for $1 million, or wait, now it probably makes more sense for me. It's too risky and there's a lot more reward. When do you think was that changing point?
I would say it was sometime last year. What we saw, and I think we saw as the industry grows up, there's different vulnerability points, right? So a couple of years ago, the operation security of exchanges was, across the board pretty weak, right? So it was pretty easy for for a hacker to hack into one of them and steal some money or steal some keys. As that happened more and more, their OPSEC improved, and that became harder. So in cybersecurity, they say you don't have to be totally secure; you just have to be more secure than the other guy. And so as the exchanges became more secure, it became harder to break in. And so what we saw was a proliferation of exit scams. Mm-hmm. And so as the industry sort of wised up to those, now we're seeing the move into DeFi scams. And so it's just sort of this constant evolution of where the bad guys move. But as the exchanges themselves become more regulated, and as the regulators themselves grow larger teeth, the implications for both the hackers and the misbehaviors becomes more significant, which is dissuading.
Yeah. Well, all thanks to you, referee John Jefferies. I appreciate you taking the time. Definitely not a vigilante or police, but referee John Jefferies. I really appreciate you.
Not a snitch.
Yeah, or snitch. Not a snitch. You're a referee. I'll get you a whistle. You know what you need? You guys need a whistle. Put a whistle in your company, in the CipherTrace logo, to make it clear. So, John, I really appreciate you sitting down, taking the time to kind of explain a little behind the scenes of how CipherTrace works and your views on the industry. So, I do appreciate that, and I'm sure our viewers do too. And for all of our viewers here at REIMAGINE 2020, I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.